Welcome to All Things Real Estate on Full Service Radio, 830 WCRN. Now, here's your hosts, Gary Kelley and Brad Avergon.
Well, welcome back to All Things Real Estate. I'm Gary Kelley with RE/MAX Executive Realty, and I'm joined with or by
Avergon of the Division of Bank and Mortgage. Did I cut you off there, Gary? You were still talking.
No, I actually think I cut you off. Sorry about that. I want to thank Harry for the intro, and now we go in and talk about where we are in the world right now. They hate it at the radio station when we say what time it is, because they want this to be a timeless show. Well, it's mid-July. Brad needs to pay his taxes tomorrow. Why do we say that? Because we're in a unique time in the world, okay? We've got coronavirus around. We've come through kind of the first bout of it. And in Massachusetts, the numbers are looking good. But if you turn on the nightly news, you're going to see that some parts of the country are going, I'm going to say backwards. And that's not the right way to look at it. But they're going to different phases. They're locking back down in California. You've got San Diego County not going to send anyone to school, that kind of thing. So by no means do we want to suggest that this is behind us at this point. We're I think the way I would look at it is we're learning to live with this, and we're doing what we can to be safe, but it's still very much alive and out there. And so one of the things we wanted to talk about today is, let's talk about, you want to sell your house, you want to downsize. How do you go about doing that in this current time? One of my questions, for example, is if I don't have the money to buy a different house, or I've I took out home equity lines on my house to pay for my kids' college, and I'm very proud about that because they're doing well. Now the question is, can I get a mortgage if I'm 70? Can I get a 30-year mortgage? Brad, how does that work? If I'm 70, do I get a 30-year mortgage?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Gary. It's kind of interesting. A lot of people think that, as you said, if I'm 70 years old, how can I get a 30-year mortgage? And, the odds of me making it to 100, may not be that great. And even if they are good, how am I going to convince the bank of that, right? So here's the reality on that. You can absolutely apply for a 30-year fixed. Banks, mortgage companies, all lenders are required not to discriminate based on age. As a matter of fact, one of the tools that I use very often is with some of my more senior clients is a 30-year fixed. And why do I do that? Well, because it allows people who are on a fixed income, a retired income, to know what their monthly payment is going to be going forward. It's going to be exactly that. It's not like taxes that can go up or home insurance that can go up or even utilities that can go up. When you sign on for a 30-year fixed mortgage, your principal and interest is going to be that. And I've written 30-year mortgage loans for people in their 90s. And I usually have a running joke with them and say, well, now you're guaranteed to live to 120 years of age because the bank won't let you die. You got to stay alive to pay the mortgage. But
That's
the reality
funny.
is it gives them that comfort in their latter years that they can have that fixed rate payment. They can plan based on whatever income they're receiving through Social Security or pension or retirement income. They can plan for that, and that gives them a lot of comfort.
If I'm sitting at home right now and I want to downsize, you've convinced me that I can get, I'm going to say, another mortgage or a new mortgage on somewhere else. But right now, the coronavirus is still out there. How am I going to protect myself to actually go out and look at homes? We've got a client in particular spent last winter getting her home ready to go on the market, and it's ready. I mean, I'm talking floors have been refinished, painting, new septic, the whole 9 yards, okay? And she's sitting there saying, Gary, I'm afraid to leave my house. I have no risk staying inside my house. If in her particular case, she wants to get an apartment. She says, if I leave my house and start to go into complexes looking at apartments, I am exposing myself. Whereas sitting here in the house, I have no risk. So, Brad, how do you suggest to someone that is afraid like that what they can do?
Well, I think there's a lot of things that can be done, physically to try to do things to make them move forward slowly. But I think the most important thing is you hit the nail on the head, Gary, which is the emotional aspect. I think you have to approach those people very gingerly and tenderly and say, okay, let's talk about that. Let's talk about what are the ramifications, assuming this COVID thing, stays around for a while, which we have no reason to believe that it's not. They haven't come up with a vaccine that's been approved. So let's talk about in the next 6 months, how are you going to approach that? Winter is coming, and how are you going to be able to get your groceries? How are you going to be able to handle this snow removal? What's that going to look like for you compared to if you were able to downsize? What would that look like? What would instead of if you mentioned somebody might be looking at an apartment, instead of looking at a high-rise apartment, maybe something on a ranch style or a garden style apartment on a lower, maybe just a couple of floors or something like that. What's the ideal living situation, and how could we help you transition into that slowly? Some of the things might be, and this is where you would come in, when you go into a property and you size it up and say, how would we get your house, assuming you wanted to move, how would we get your house ready to sell? And then the other part of it is, how would this look for you financially? Are you comfortable being in your house? Can you afford to stay in your house, for a while? So that's another thing to talk about too. And what would the new picture look like? Gary, are dealing with someone like this, and I'm sure you've had some clients that have that hesitancy, what are some of the things that you do to kind of give them that comfort and the baby steps maybe?
Well, what we do is we say, listen, you've got to get your house painted. While that's going on, can you go stay with the kids for a little bit? And maybe that's an extended weekend, maybe that's a couple of weeks, whatever. But that allows contractors to go into the house. And my view is it's not about the contractor. My view is you have to assume anyone coming into the house has the potential to expose you to the virus. And so you don't want to just be cavalier and say, well, I'll leave the house for the afternoon and let them in. So what we do is we say, is there a way that we can get in and get this work accomplished while you're away? And then we also can talk about the things that we're doing when we show houses to try to minimize risk to ourselves, to the buyer, and certainly to the seller. So people are wearing masks. Masks are just a given at this point in my mind. We've got some folks that would like to have us wear gloves in their houses. That's fine. I'm not a big fan of gloves myself because I think that unless you have the proper protocol, you're just taking stuff from one end to the other. I'm more of a hand sanitizer fan. So in any of my listings, we're leaving hand sanitizer. And then there's booties. Put booties on and walk around with booties, and that's cool. One of my pet peeves, this is off topic a little bit, but one of my pet peeves is I go and I show houses and they want us to wear booties and they don't leave clean booties in the house. The last thing I want to do is put on someone's dirty booty from a prior showing. So what do? I have a little box in my car now. Sue calls it my COVID box, and I've got extra masks. I've got extra gloves. I've got gloves that are like one-time use, and I've got gloves that you could wear for a lifetime. I mean, they're just really heavy duty. They're also very hot in the summertime. And then, the gloves, the booties, that kind of stuff, so that we can go through the house and be safe. I don't want to be subjected to our clients being subjected to the virus because we're being cavalier about it. But in the case of the lady that's afraid to leave her house, we've said to her, we're not going to push you out of your house.
Right.
That's okay. And It's an interesting thing because she is motivated to sell her house. She wants to live in an apartment for a year, and then she's going to go out to the West Coast and live with her daughters. And I said to her, I think, your plan to move to the West Coast perhaps has more risk today, July 14th, than it will in the future. But it's all her personal comfort level. She knows that if she needs a hand, she can give Sue or I a call. We'll help her with any of her, if she needed groceries, she's taking care of all that on her own. But if she needed a contractor to come in, that we have those kinds of contacts that we can help her with. These are folks that obviously it's, you got to pay them. Okay. But if she had a toilet that was loose, we have, plumber, handyman, that kind of resource available to help her so that she doesn't have to let the house kind of age around her, which is what a lot of people do. They've lived in the house for 20 years. They've enjoyed the house. It's been their home. It's their home. And then when we walk in, we see the green rugs. Right. We see, blue bathroom fixtures. Sure. And we look at that and we say, well, this house is dated. And you're really, in some ways, telling someone that their baby is ugly. And that's a hard discussion because
that's a hard discussion.
You may not like that the house has blue fixtures in the bathroom, but it's their house. And right. That's how they've lived. And that's how they're comfortable. And when you go in and say to someone, listen, we're in an age where you've got a virus in the wild and we got to replace your bathroom fixtures, a toilet, you can get them for, let's say $250, just throwing a number out there, Home Depot brand, that kind of stuff. It's not that expensive, but when you start to get into, well, what am I going to do with the tub? Am I going to replace the tub? Well, no, there's some bathtub refinishing things, options that you can explore. Those are discussions that we need to have. Now we can let people go around and take videos and all that stuff, but there's nothing like going in to see someone's property. And I want to talk more about that in the second half of the show, Brad.
Sounds good, Gary.
All right. We'll catch you on the other side after the break.
Catch you on the flip side.
You've been listening to All Things Real Estate on Full Service Radio, 830 WCRN.